Red leader to gold leader. Red leader to gold leader. Do you copy me?
Red leader, this is gold leader. How you doing there? How you doing there, red leader?
Oh, good. Good to hear your voice. I'm here in the south of France, specifically on the Corsican island. And you?
I'm here in beautiful Seattle, Washington. All right.
Very good.
Okay, red leader. Let's plan our approach because we've got very limited time in order to solve the world's most daunting problems, including but not limited to climate change and abrupt climate change, including the melting of permafrost, releasing massive amounts of methane, which would put us onto an accelerating pathway of irreversible climate change that we simply cannot afford to undergo. So we need to get this thing going ASAP. We need to get a form of collective intelligence operational that can really go about solving these problems holistically and simultaneously starting ASAP without further delay. We cannot afford further delay due to any excuse, right? Like, for example, I was talking with a friend last night on the phone, and she said, well, how are you going to accomplish all this with the Trump administration, right? And, we cannot make up excuses like, oh, with the Trump administration, this isn't possible. We're out of time, and therefore we're out of excuses. We simply need to do it. We need to figure out all the ways, all the solutions, including political solutions.
Yes, the Death Star is training its gaze upon planet Earth.
Exactly. And the Death Star is abrupt climate change coupled with the severe and ongoing destruction of the biosphere of species, the mass extinction that we're in the middle of, and the destruction of habitat. I mean, all of these destructive problems all happening simultaneously. There are those who believe that we're out of hope entirely. We take a radically different perspective, which is that collective intelligence has not yet begun to fight. And when it does, it's going to change the course of the battle in ways that we can't even imagine yet, because we cannot imagine an intelligence as powerful as the collective intelligence that we're seeking to facilitate the creation of. So, elsewhere we talk about collective intelligence. Elsewhere we talk about ICCI. Here, on Red Leader to Gold Leader, we're talking about mapping out exactly our approach in the form of topics. What topics are we going to delve into and develop and perfect? Such that the matrix of all these topics, or the taxonomy of all these topics, or taxonomies plural, contain all of the intelligence that we need ultimately to solve all of our problems. So, Michael, I'm going to turn it over to you while I do screen share and get us onto the whiteboard.
Yes, thank you, Gold Leader, for that. The tactical approach that we're waiting for, I think, is one that will give us a new hope.
Yep, exactly. That's exactly right. A new hope. That is a very good analogy. So here we are. Okay, so here we're planning out our approach. Remember that scene in the Star Wars, towards the end of Star Wars, where they're planning their approach, and they go boop, 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 and on a computer screen, you see like this schematic forming of the Death Star, and you zoom in, and it says, here's the exhaust port and all that, and
yes.
So that's kind of where we're at now. We're mapping it out. We're creating the map, literally the map, or the topology of topics that we're going to be addressing, so that we can holistically map out the Death Star and destroy it. I think that's a good metaphor, right? Because
I think that's a perfect metaphor. We're dealing in the realm of spatial topographies, and maybe more importantly, the limited timeline we have, right? I mean,
Yes.
the Star Wars analogy is
Yes.
perfect because, you know, when you're up against of I don't know, mere minutes, right? In our case,
Yes.
we may be talking in years rather than decades,
Or months rather than years.
Yeah, exactly.
Months.
And so I think
Right.
the analogy applies.
Yes, perfect. Perfect. So I'm just kind of writing here some topics. And by the way, just because we map out a given topic doesn't mean that it's a high priority topic for us to delve into right away. But, you know, I would say, you know, one big topic is that of the Death Star itself, defining the Death Star. So these become essentially, you know, subtopics under the Death Star topic, right? And this will map this will map to the kinds of taxonomies that we see, for example, on Radish. So on Radish, if you go and you click on, you know, platforms and solutions, it takes you to a taxonomy, and then you can click on various of the links. So that's kind of that's kind of our paradigm here in terms of an interface that we're using for starters. We're just kind of piggybacking off of the Radish interface because they've allowed us to. And
yeah, and before we can act upon, we'll just say intelligence, right, which is what they're dealing with in the movie Star Wars, A New Hope. Yeah, you have to gather the intelligence first, right, and you gather it in a way where it becomes a sort of schematic, a map, if you will, of the territory or lay of the land. And
exactly,
and that gives you your bearings.
Yes, exactly.
What are we up against, right? That's the question. At first, they didn't even know what the Death Star looked like. They didn't even know there was such a thing as the Death Star at first, right?
Exactly.
But now we know that climate change is real and is happening fast.
Yes. Yep. So I'm just looking at, you know, just various different categories of the Death Star, various, you know, subtopics of the Death Star topic, and you know, the paradigm here. I'll just put know your enemy, as we've been saying. We need to understand. We need to understand our enemy, and so with that, and we'll develop that, and we'll, you know, and we'll let the experts come in and participate in the conversations on those topics. And then another whole set of topics, or another whole taxonomy of topics, is that which pertains to collective intelligence itself, right?
Absolutely. That's sort of a meta topic, if you will, but a topic nonetheless.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of a high level topic. So I sort of see it as kind of the top of its own taxonomy. And so, you know, then what are some of these topics?
The various components.
Right. Well, right. Well, so one topic is precisely components, right? There are components of intelligence, like, for example, you know, conversations. Conversations are components. That's a major component, probably the most important component, right? Taxonomies themselves are components, right? And then within taxonomies, there's the special case of the teleological taxonomy, right? So I'm kind of going deep in areas, but
in a sense, the teleological taxonomy is the taxonomy to rule them all. In my thinking,
right.
And so it's an appropriate place to start.
Right. So I'll just kind of highlight that as a high priority topic. Why don't we just put it that way, right? And then of course, you know, one subtopic under that is the telos, right? What is the aim, right? And that'll be a very hot topic unto itself. Another subtopic is, you know, what should the structure? What structure or form should the teleological taxonomy take?
Allez, bonsoir, merci. À la prochaine.
Okay. Anyway, I'm just providing some examples, but including but not
examples, which gives context of what are we talking about. This is good.
Yes. So other components of collective intelligence include, let's just call them, platforms for generating solutions, right? Platforms for generating solutions. One would be brain swarming, for example. That's one that we've made extensive use of. Another is global holistic modeling, right? That gives us a way of kind of doing, simulation testing of potential solutions before we actually implement them in the real world, right? And everyone does this anyway, as best they can, or at least they should be doing this kind of predictive modeling. But what we're talking about is really perfecting it and having a common platform. Anyway, that's a topic unto itself, is global holistic modeling. Likewise, under platforms, continuing on, I'll just put here, platforms continued. Another important platform is the, I'll just put the crossing, right? As in, AI cross HI equals CI, that kind of crossing, right? The crossing between global holistic modeling. Yeah.
No, go ahead.
Yeah. Global holistic modeling, brain swarming, and the teleological taxonomy, right?
Nice.
And that's kind of the essence of radical collective intelligence, which is one specific form of collective intelligence. But anyway, so the crossing of these three, which is the very definition of radical collective intelligence, that is yet another platform, right? So we're talking about platforms which are now mashups of preceding platforms. So we basically took the previous three of the previous. I'll just kind of highlight them here in orange, right? Or in gold, as I'm the gold leader. So we're mashing up taxonomies. Taxonomies, brain swarming, and global holistic modeling. We mash up those three, and we get this grand crossing, right, of the three. Taxonomies, brain swarming, which happens to be radical collective intelligence. So that becomes a platform precisely for developing and testing solutions, right? For developing and testing solutions in the virtual laboratory.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, other platforms include, I'm just going to call it the amino acid assembly platform. All right. Amino acid, AAA. There we go. Amino acid assembly. And by that, it's the analogy that we discuss extensively elsewhere on Radish and on ICCI. By the way, full disclosure, I'm the president of Radish and co-founder. And Michael, you're the other co-founder of Radish. And so anyway, just full disclosure there. But right now we're talking in the context of ICCI, of course. So amino acid assembly is basically the assembling of all the components, where I use amino acids as just an analogy of any amino acids being assembled to form a protein. So here the protein is the solution, right, or a solution, and the amino acids are the components that make up that solution. And so amino acid assembly, here we're talking about using collective intelligence to both identify and notify, right? Identify and notify experts out there in the world and say, hey, we need your help in figuring out this one golden amino acid. Hey, gold leader, we need your help putting in this golden amino acid right here. Okay, fine, right? And then I'm notified, I come, I jump into the hangout that's going on, get the context, boom, make my micro contribution, and and then move on. And then 15 minutes later, there might be a call to red leader. Hey, red leader, we need this big red amino acid that you're an expert at. Can you come in here, right? And then you might say, well, look, I'm actually busy with some other stuff, but I'm going to send in another person from the red squadron to come in who's also an expert in the red amino acids, right? So, anyway, so these notification systems can become, quite sophisticated, where if the person they're pinging first doesn't answer within X period of time, they ping someone else, and they use artificial intelligence to help notify. Anyway, these are other platforms. So, so let's go back to the high level and see kind of where we're at. And let's see here. So we've got, the big picture. It kind of divides itself into, there's kind of the Death Star itself, and then there's collective intelligence, right? Which we've been talking about the last few minutes. And then I would say there's the realm of solutions, right? Which it's the aim of collective intelligence to identify, to co-create, to perfect, to evolve, to implement, et cetera, et cetera. And yet, there's a massive body of existing solutions that collective intelligence is both adding to and also perfecting, right? So, at this high level, is there anything else, well, actually, there's community. And community is one of the hearts of collective intelligence. And, the most important part of it. So, and then there's also the software part of collective intelligence, right? Which our aim is to co-create in open source style. So, but both the software and the community are really kind of subtopics under collective intelligence, I would say. So let's go back to.
Yeah, and we notice, I notice there, Gold Leader, that we have the same, false dichotomy, division of labor, if you will, between human intelligence and artificial intelligence, right? In terms of the software.
Yes.
Right. And
yes.
the I guess the community, both users, consumers, and designers and developers.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and what's fascinating is that a lot of the intelligence itself will be in the form of recorded conversations, such as this one, right? The fact that this is recorded and stored, it becomes part of the intelligence, part of the collective.
Yeah. And I suppose we have to. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, go ahead, Michael. Go ahead.
Yeah, we have to say I false dichotomy, because look, the very fact that right now we're having a recorded hangout, right, that potentially becomes a core part of the CI itself, right? Right there, you have HI and AI mashed up, right? They're kind of inseparable at that point. And I think we're going to find that all along the way, man and machine, or in other words, Homo sapiens as the tool using species, right, is just simply a continuation of the evolution that we've seen all along. And when you talk about the amino acids, for example, that's very interesting too, insofar that you have a biological, metaphor, but it's also an evolutionary one, right? And I think here with collective intelligence, we're actually talking about the next stage of cultural evolution. In this case, not only a conscious cultural evolution, but a conscientious cultural evolution. Wow. Yeah, brilliant, Michael. Brilliant.
Yeah, in fact, and the culture is going to evolve as the collective intelligence evolves. I mean, that's true for any species. The culture of that species reflects is
Yeah.
very tight.
So in one sense, it represents a radical break. See, yeah, collective intelligence, right? And
Yeah,
in another sense, it's simply the logical extension of who we are, right, as a tool using species.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And you see that gets into the a topic of the philosophy of collective intelligence.
True.
So, so here I'm going to kind of circle in green, sort of the core subtopics of collective intelligence: the software, the community, the culture, the philosophy of it. The components, I'd say, is another high level one because, you know, the components include such important constructs such as solutions and the mapping of solutions, all of this good stuff down here below. So Red Leader, let's focus on, now that we've got this kind of high level view, both of the Death Star itself, the enemy, and some of its just a beginning of the listing of its kind of main subcomponents, and collective intelligence and its high level view, and a little bit of a deep dive into some of its components. Red Leader, what do you think is kind of the most important topics that we zero in on first, considering our own evolutionary pathway and the urgency of the same? Specific, and what I immediately go to is, we need to bring in other leaders. We thank heavens we've got Red Leader and Gold Leader. We need other leaders. So how do we go about recruiting, other leaders? I think this very video blog that we're starting right now, Red Leader to Gold Leader, is a brilliant first step at it, because it's by its very title and its very nature, it's a call to leaders. So we need whole squadrons of software developers. We need whole squadrons of historians, philosophers, experts in literally all topics that span the full spectrum of academia. I'm back on video now, and so I'm just thinking out loud here, and love to go back and forth with you for a few minutes here. Where do we really see the priority? Where do we want to kind of strike first, Red Leader?
I copy you, Gold Leader, and to my thinking, the theoretical answer, which is almost, well, not necessarily always, easier to come by than the practical, is simply that the taxonomy itself, the teleological taxonomy, right? Not necessarily talking about the teleological taxonomy as such, but actually showing how the teleological taxonomy integrates the various parts in such a way that makes micro contributions possible, right? That kind of gives the vision, the aim, right? Which is what telos means. So that people kind of have the wherewithal. They know, well, it provides motivation, but then within the various topics, that's where you bring in the experts, so to speak, the people. Here, let me turn my camera on for a moment. The people who have the expertise that that we all require, right? But it's not enough to have one or the other. Just, oh, hey, you're a specialist in this. We have a topic about that. But how does it fit into a holistic taxonomy of topics with an aim, a telos? What are we working towards? And the fact that your contribution given a topic, that's central to you and your work, that I think gives it, people can find themselves within that structure. It gives them a place, a sort of a home, but within a larger, neighborhood or a city, right? It's kind of like, we talk a lot about the skyscraper analogy, the various, each conversation building upon another constitutes a sort of skyscraper with sky bridges connecting, the various structures. I think that merely by pointing to the common aim and then acknowledging their place, red leader, maybe red leader is a specialist in one kind of combat, and maybe gold leader is a specialist in another. Maybe that's why there are gold, maybe, red and gold, maybe they represent, two different specializations or whatever, for example. Right.
Well, for example, red, you've always been a man of the people, Michael. You've always been very focused on the people-centric stuff, and I've kind of gravitated more towards the planet, like the planet, global holistic modeling. So the golden planet, right? And red, of the people, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah, you have, and so I think even right there, in terms of the various squadrons or whatever, you have the metaphor for a division of labor, but they're working together seamlessly to accomplish a common aim.
Exactly.
Namely, destroying the Death Star.
Which is the telos. So, the two main, the two main subtopics under the telos of a whole world, this is the perspective that we're developing on Radish. By the way, everything on Radish, feel free to use. Anyone and everyone on each, you feel free to use it. We just make it available open source. Feel free to copy it, et cetera, et cetera. But anyway, the two main subtopics under the telos of a whole world are people and planet, right? So red leader, by default, you're looking out for the needs of people. Gold leader is looking out for the needs of planet, as if the two were separable, which they're not. But, by planet, we basically mean everything else. And then we break it down from there. So yeah, so that becomes sort of the beginning of a natural, taxonomy. And then, we can have leaders for example, we need a leader for the oceans, for the topic of the oceans, another leader for atmosphere, another leader for land and the continents, another leader for all of life, another leader for ecosystems, another leader for desertification, another leader for, reversing desertification, et cetera, et cetera. So we need leaders for so many different topics, subtopics, subtopics, et cetera, both within people and the planet. Within people, we need leaders for hunger and for shelter and for education and for community and for safety and for, apparel. I mean, looking out for the needs of humanity as a species, while at the same time looking out for everything that we just mentioned in the last few minutes, all the other topics for which we need leaders. So really, red leader to gold leader is, I think, the highest and best use for the video blog right now, for the conversation that we're having right now, is basically to create opportunities for leaders to self-identify and to emerge and to join us and to say, hey, I'm, hey, red leader and gold leader, I'm pick your favorite color, leader. And, green leader might be the person in charge of the biosphere, right? The leader in charge of all aspects of the biosphere, right? Taking an integrated, holistic view of the biosphere. And then, of course, there'll be many leaders, many shades of green, under green leader, right? Dark green for the old growth forests, and, all the way to light green for savannas and whatnot. Anyway, I'm just thinking of, fun ways that we can really open up the space for leaders to emerge, right? And if you become leader, it doesn't mean that you're there and, for life or anything. Retirement is possible. That's a joke. You don't have to retire. You can just say, look, I'm taking a break from this. And then it creates an opportunity for someone else to step into that leadership role, right?
And one of the things I think we need to keep in mind is that in terms of micro contributions, there are going to be those who are consciously engaged in the cause, and those who, you know, have no idea that it even exists and yet are working away on a significant contribution to collective intelligence.
Right.
Right.
Wow.
Because and so I think in a sense we honor both, right? It's the contribution that matters.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and the thing is, collective intelligence is essentially going to assimilate all, you know, codified intelligence that exists anywhere, be it all of academia and all published papers, all of Wikipedia, all of the internet. I mean, we build on top of the giants on whose shoulders we stand. And so, you know, it's all good as far as collective intelligence is concerned, right?
Right.
We just build a topic. We just, you know, in appropriate topics within the taxonomy, there's links to all the relevant papers, Wikipedia pages, you name it, and taxonomies thereof.
Yeah,
right?
it's like, yeah, it's like the inventors, I should say, of the telegraph, for example, were certainly, you know, forerunners of the digital revolution, right? But they had no knowledge of such a thing, and yet there they are. They're in the history.
Right.
They're part of the narrative or story.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so I think that's one of the beautiful things about what we're building here. Not only us, of course, but all these people that we're, you know, enrolling, is that it actually amplifies the contribution of so many people who have come before, who are here now, and who are to come.
Absolutely. And in fact, that gives me an idea, which is that, you know, part of the notification system for, you know, for AAA, for amino acid assembling of topics, assembling of information, because these all become components, whether you know it or not at the moment. You're assembling, even if you just bring in some obscure paper that you scan in and upload as a PDF, you know, hey,
yeah, you never know.
You never know.
So what? Yeah.
That's all part of AAA, amino acid assembly.
Hey, Gold Leader, I have 5 minutes before shutdown.
Okay, well, you know, in that case, I'm going to turn it over to you because I can hit on some of these other topics later. Let me just turn it over to you first and foremost. I'm here. You know, I'm happy to go back and forth. In fact, let's go back and forth. Sure. But I just want to give.
Yeah, no, I really like where we're going with this. We're building something that is, yes, it's open source so that other people can participate in building, but then in turn, the very building welcomes, you know, anyone and everyone who has a contribution to make. And, you know, in a sense, that's really what drives us to perform in any arena.
Wow. And you know what's cool, Michael, is, you know, back to the, you know, the notification systems for identifying experts, is just as we identify these topics themselves and write them down and put them in their appropriate place within their appropriate taxonomy, we can even have semi-automated systems as well as human experts who get in there and say, okay, for this topic, who are the experts out there in the world today? Let's send them an invitation for us to interview them on their topic of expertise. And by the way, here's a little bit about ICCI and, you know, and what we're up to. Right?
You know, and this is the first time, Gold Leader, I've heard you speak of a notification system. And I think it's something that has a lot of potential in terms of what we're talking about here, in terms of enrolling people, getting people engaged, involved. So I'm looking forward to talking much more about a notification system.
Wonderful. Yeah, it's a key part of it. Well, see, this is why, Red Leader, it's so important that we come together and map all this stuff out so we can see what's there and then see what's missing. But on the topic of the notification system, just by creating a new subtopic, you know, XYZ, and then having that notification system reach out to experts, that's a way to bring in experts in a systematic way, right? Where we use a combination of technology, for example, Google search, you know, and things, you know, but obviously even more sophisticated layers on top of that, using automation to help identify potential candidate experts for that topic, and then say, hey, we'd like to interview you. Right? Are you available at this time, this time, this time? And we just build out the taxonomy of topics, build out the experts associated with them, interview them, get them into the collective intelligence, ask them if they're open to further notifications where their expertise is needed for something important.
Yeah, needed and acknowledged. I mean, imagine receiving a message, maybe it's even prior to a notification saying, hey, your contribution has been recognized by, collective intelligence, right? I mean, and if people want to continue to receive, messages, notifications, etc., then they're going to be kept abreast of, how their contributions are being, put to good use.
Yeah.
That's wow. That's an exciting prospect. I haven't considered that. This whole notion of a notification system, I think is brilliant.
Yeah. Well, there are elements of that discussed in the book, Reinventing Discovery by Nielsen.
Are there?
Yeah. I mean, like, for example, he talks about, like, in the realm of science and new scientific discovery, that, I mean, he talks about it as sort of a hypothetical, but there are real world implementations of it, however imperfect, right? And you see, that's the exciting opportunity of collective intelligence. This is the dawn of the age of collective intelligence, because we're now able to take these examples like the Polymath Project, headed by Terry Tao and others, which, have notification systems of this nature, however, basic. And what we're talking about is putting together stuff that's way more sophisticated as we build successive platforms of collective intelligence. And that's exactly what ICCI is all about supporting. So in this context, in the context of ICCI, we're talking about bringing in experts on these various topics with a view to building out collective intelligence to master all topics and to master the holistic solving of all the world's most daunting problems.
Yes. Well, with that, Jamin, Gold Leader, I'm gonna turn my camera on and look forward to reconnecting as soon as tomorrow.
Very good.
But hopefully for even longer.
Yes.
The earlier the longer. That's kind of the general principle.
Sure.
So you got it, man. Go with it.
All right. I'll go with it a bit longer. Thank you so much, Red Leader. Look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Red Leader, this is Gold Leader saying arigato gozaimasu. Arigato gozaimasu. Arigato gozaimasu. All right. Thank you, Red Leader. I'm going to take a quick little pause and I'll be right back with y'all. Thank you. Arigato. Okay, welcome back. Gold Leader here, flying solo for a bit, but always with my team. So I want to acknowledge the whole Gold team and the entire Red team, represented by its leader, Red Leader Michael. Thank you all. So never flying solo, though I have that illusion from time to time. So anyway. Let me get back to the whiteboard. What I want to do is review the various topics we've just identified, right? Both with respect to the Death Star and with respect to collective intelligence. And I want to highlight the ones that I want to zero in on in subsequent introductory videos, which I just want to get something out there for starters, just so that there's at least the beginnings of that topic in terms of content. All right, so this one is very important, abrupt climate change. We've got to touch on that one. The other ones are all related to it, but they all are really driving it. Let's see here. Yeah, that's the one I want to focus on first. However, having said that, all these topics beckon for leaders to emerge and to begin to map out and have conversations. Just, I'll join any of these conversations if a leader will take the lead. I'll go with you into that topic, and let's talk about a vision for it, and for what we want to achieve, and especially in the context of the teleological taxonomy, which is a subtopic under collective intelligence. So we've just shifted from the Death Star, or the world's problems. Let me just go back to that for a moment, because that was kind of abrupt. Sorry about that. So the Death Star is basically all the world's problems, and emphasis on the ellipses, because there are many social and environmental problems. So this is just the beginning. Emphasis on ellipses. Okay, but the one I'm going to zoom in on next in a brief intro video will be abrupt climate change. Then, within the realm of collective intelligence, I've already highlighted some of the ones that are important in gold. Let me identify some of the others that we want to jump into. Software is a biggie, so leaders definitely needed there. Platforms and solutions will have a super brief intro, and mainly links to pages that already exist, that we've already created, some on Radish and some elsewhere, that already begin to provide introductions to platforms and solutions, and some context around that. Likewise for the software, just kind of making notes as we're just mapping out my approach for the next things I need to record for you all. Culture, taxonomies, may have some stuff here. So I'll look into that. And let's see here. Definitely have a link for that, as well as that. Okay, good. So this is going to be pretty straightforward. Let's see what else we got here. Okay. Yeah, radical collective intelligence. We definitely have links for that, and the crossing of these three. Plenty of material for that. I need to talk about the notification system and a bit more about this amino acid assembly. So let me get into that. All right. Well, I've got my work cut out for me, so I'll record those brief videos for each of those, and get this all up there in the form of some simple taxonomies for starters. And then then here's kind of the big picture, is that for each and every one of these topics, whether it's a Death Star topic that finds a leader in the next few weeks, and then gets some content built out for it, or it's any of these other topics on collective intelligence. Whatever the topic, we want to have a community of folks who are either actively engaged in that topic in an ongoing way, like on a week-by-week basis, they're actively engaged. Let's say they spend an hour a week in a hangout on the topic, and another hour, researching and, reading summaries of stuff in between, keeping tabs on it, because the conversation is ongoing. It never really sleeps, because, there's people all around the world participating. So, for each of these topics and subtopics and subtopics, you just have these ongoing conversations. And in fact, you know what? I better have a special. Let me definitely talk about conversations and what we mean by that. So anyway, for each of these topics, we will have conversations which grow and evolve, and as they grow and evolve, the intelligence on that topic grows and evolves, because the conversations equate to intelligence. They are stored intelligence. So, there's stored train of thought, and that's extremely valuable. I mean, it is a powerful form of intelligence. So each of these topics will evolve as the community that is responsible for that topic moves the conversation forward and invites other folks, including experts, to join the conversation at critical moments for the assemblage of amino acids, for the creation of whatever needs to be created, whether it's a solution, whether it's a deeper understanding, whether it's a model, whether it's some software, whatever needs to be created. And of course, that's the topic of solutions, which I've bundled together with platforms here, because platforms themselves are a form of solutions. So we just lump the two together, platforms and solutions. So that's that's it at a high level in terms of where we need to move forward in terms of leadership development, team development, community development, and community. Also, I just wanted to shout out that this part here, the AAA, the amino acid assembly / notification system, those two are inseparable, right? The notifications exist to assemble key amino acids at key moments. So I'm just making a note to myself. All of this needs to co-evolve as the software co-evolves, as our community evolves and grows. And I think it will happen exponentially just because of the very nature of both the urgency of the Death Star bearing down on us and just how deeply satisfying and enriching it is to actually be a part of the holistic solution to the world's problems, to defeating the Death Star and saving as much of our planet as we can. So leaders and prospective leaders and volunteers and team members of all kinds, please join us. Reach out, sign up on ICCI, send us a note. If you have a question, ask away. All questions are welcome. And we'd love to talk with you, actually. That's kind of the point. So if you join ICCI, you can, by default, be on the mailing list for all the invitations, for all the membership-wide conversations that we have, where we open it up to all members. And there are others that will open up to the general public, and others that will be specific invite only, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So all shades of gray, all flavors of that. So anyway, thank you all. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Let me go back to video mode here. Okay. And thank you all so much for watching. Arigatou gozaimasu. We'll see you on the upcoming videos. See you soon. And thank you again to Red Leader. This is Gold Leader signing off from Red Leader to Gold Leader. Arigato.